All right, Ray. So we know across the car market that dealers are having a hard time with inventory management. We know that automakers are stressing. They're in emergency mode right now because they've overloaded a lot of these dealers with so many cars. And now they're trying to figure out ways to move metal. And we just had this number come out. The U.S. new vehicle inventory jumps to 3.12 million vehicles. And this is the most that we've seen in a long time. And every dealership that I'm going to now seems like there's stacks and stacks and stacks of Ford Broncos, of F-150s. I go to Nissan dealership. There's Sentras sitting around, and these are like low $20,000 vehicles, and those are stacking up. You go to Toyota now, it's Tacomas and Tundras. I mean, it doesn't matter which brand you go to. There are vehicles that are stacking up on these dealership lots. I mean, it seems like it's getting worse, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Well, it seems to me that all the automobile manufacturers who claim to have learned something during the chip shortage and the pandemic, that they could operate with smaller and smaller inventories, not have to spend as much money on marketing and incentives, and said that, well, moving forward, we're never going to get back to pre-pandemic levels. We're not going to subscribe to the theory if we build it, we can sell it. We're just going to build what people want. Seems to me those were some of the most hollow, empty words ever spoken by any of the manufacturers out there. When you looked at 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago this month, the on-hand or available new car inventory was about 800,000 new cars per month. During the heyday, it used to run somewhere between 3.4 and close to 4 million vehicles a month. Every manufacturer said, we're never getting there again. Well, we just cracked 3 million. Okay, so they can't help themselves. They can't stop themselves. They can't control themselves. And one of the things they definitely can't do is they can't subscribe to the theory that we will build what the customer wants, because they're still subscribing to the theory of we will build what we tell the customer they want. Whether or not the customer buys it or not is irrelevant, because we know better than the customers do.
So I got some numbers right here. So just in November, the new vehicle inventory rose by over 11%. And that's it. So it went from 3.12 million and it's up from 2.81 million. I can tell you that I'm seeing it at these dealership lots. Talk to a franchise dealer, talk to some salespeople, and they are feeling it. We have dealers now that are rolling back some of these allocations. They are not ordering when they thought they would. So but what's interesting is I saw that some of the explanation for this could be is that there's a year-end stocking up, increases driven by automakers stocking up for year-end sales. And I can tell you on the used car side of things, I know when I go into the busiest time of year for us, which is tax time, I'm doing it right now. I'm buying as many cars as I can. We had like 91 cars 2 weeks ago. Right now, we have 108, and we're going to keep going up until we have hopefully 150 plus by the time tax time rolls around. Is this a similar situation that you see happen just about every year before the year end? And then I want to add another question onto that. And in this year, what if that holiday selling season doesn't come to fruition as well as a lot of these auto manufacturers and a lot of these dealers hope it is going to come?
There's always inventory at the end of the year. The manufacturers are trying to hit their sales goals. Well, you can't hit your annual sales goals if you don't provide your dealer body with enough inventory for them to sell and be able to report those retail sales so you can hit that sales goal. Having said that, I think many of the manufacturers have produced way too many overpriced, over-equipped, high profit margin vehicles that aren't selling nearly as well as if they were actually building the more affordable vehicles. and I know we have this conversation all the time, and the reason they don't build the more affordable vehicles, well, they don't make as much when they build those. But my theory has always been they'll make it up in the volume because they'll sell to more people. Apparently, they're not interested in that. Um, I think for certain brands, we're going to see incentives go up dramatically if they haven't already this month. And we'll see dealers who are suffering with these huge inventory levels be much more aggressive when it comes to how much they're willing to discount a vehicle in order to move it prior to the end of the year. And and I know I see comments all the time. Well, the dealers in my neck of the woods, they're not budging. Well, then either you're the world's worst negotiator, okay, or there's like only one dealer in your neck of the woods, and they know that. And so, no, they don't have to negotiate. Go find another dealer. I mean, you see it. You talk to your friend that runs a Nissan store. I'm sure he's not passing on anything. Um, Dealers that we're in contact with are being as aggressive as they possibly can be because they're saddled with huge interest expense sitting on this inventory. So whether people want to believe it or not, there are deals to be had if you go to the dealership ultimately and work them over the price of the vehicle. If you're just going to look at what's advertised online, then you might not be seeing what the actual selling price could end up being.
And one thing I see a lot too in our comments is that, okay, well, you talk about how these dealers are strapped so much, how these automakers are hurting so much, and yeah, we see like incentives going up, so we know there's some distress there, but the numbers don't make sense because year over year sales are up 13%. But here's the thing, they should be up way more than that because you got to think about inventory levels. You go over the last 3 years where dealerships even 12 months ago they had 50% on their lot what the inventory is right now. So you double their inventory, but overall the sales only go up by 13%. No. We should that's not the way good business is running because if you double your inventory, you should be knocking the cover off the ball if you're actually moving these vehicles that manufacturers are getting to you. So 13%, yeah, while that's good that sales are going up in some capacity, they should be going up way more, and dealers are still not selling as many vehicles right now as manufacturers are pumping to them.
Well, and they're not because the manufacturers are still pumping the wrong vehicles to them.
Right.
It's still, I mean, we have this conversation and it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first, affordability or not affordable? And if you want to sell cars, you got to make them affordable. You have to, if the idea is to grow inventory as much as it's grown, and I won't say it's 50%. I would say this time last year there were probably 2 to 2.2 million new vehicles available this time of year, as opposed to a little over 3 million now. So it's gone up a third at minimum. It seems to me if your inventory's gone up a third and your sales have only gone up 11 to 13%, that perhaps it's time as a manufacturer to say, what can we do to expand the number of people who we could potentially sell a car to? Okay. And I think in order to do that, you need to have and offer and build more lower priced entry level type vehicles. And let's face it, over the years, many of the manufacturers have done away with their base model trim levels. And they've gone from the very base model and they've already moved up to one trim level above that, which is now their base model, but that might be $1,000 more than what the base model used to be. So it just seems to me if your inventory's increased by at least a third, that you want to try to expand the number of people you can sell to, maybe by a commensurate amount. We know there's about a 16% of the population that feels as if they can actually afford to buy a new car today. What about the other 84%? If you took that 16% and you made it 26% or 30%, wouldn't it then become easier, excuse me, to sell that extra 30% of inventory that's out there now?
Yeah, so let me pull this up too. The estimates on days supply are at 87 days.
Okay.
I mean that seems ridiculous. And what supply was a year earlier was 70 days. It just goes back to, okay, yeah, we have sales that are going up, but the amount of vehicles that are sitting for longer is going up and up and up and up still. So even though these dealers, they're selling more quantity of vehicles, the actual money that they're making per vehicles is going way down because they have to take cuts. The manufacturers are making less money because they have to spend money on incentives, and we're seeing that across the board. I mean, even I was at a Toyota dealership, the most sought after brand in the U.S. right now, with Toyota. They're offering special interest rates. And this is something that it's just going to we're going to see more and more and more of this, and especially coming up in the end of this month, we should see probably a lot of money on the hood. We're going to see a lot of dealers take some money off because there's going to be a lot of dealerships that are going to be desperate to hit their end of the year goals, and they're probably not even close for a lot of them.
Well, and the reality is, and I don't want anybody to cry any real tears over this statement, but the reality is that um, dealer net profit is down dramatically from years past. Prior to COVID, most dealerships worked on maybe a 2 to 2.5% net profit. In other words, for every dollar that got spent, 2 cents or 2.5 cents made it to the bottom line eventually. Okay. During the height of the pandemic, when prices were sky high, when there was a shortage of vehicles, and the public said, well, I want to get a new car and I'll pay whatever it takes, those profit margins went up to like 6, 7%. That's unheard of. That was unheard of in the industry. Well, guess what? They're probably back close to 2.5 to 3%. So they're working on half the profit margin that they had been just 2 years ago. Now, for most dealerships, that's still more than enough. Okay. The dealers, in many cases, are still getting rich. Okay. So I don't want you crying real tears for these people, but things have changed dramatically at the dealership level. So there's a couple things that dealers have to do. They have to actually pay attention to their expenses again. Okay? They have to, when things are good, nobody cares what the expenses were. Oh my God, yeah, we're making so much money, and they never look. Well, the reality is you should be looking at every one of your expenses when things are good, not when things are bad. The time to cut the expenses is when things are good. And so it'll take care of itself when things eventually go south. And dealers are finally starting to look at their expense structure again, whether it be employee cost, whether it be the cost of floor planning their inventories, because that's gone up dramatically. So even though dealers were raking everybody over the coals 2 years ago, those coals have gone dead. They're kind of cold, and things are reverting back to pre-pandemic levels when it comes to profit margins. And the dealers are feeling it to a degree, and manufacturers are feeling it because the dealers are having a tough time selling their overpriced inventory. So the manufacturers have to offer larger incentives.
So you have some experience because you went through the 2008 when all the money dried up of getting, I would assume, the word is probably very creative to try to get customers into cars at these dealerships. We have a question here from Fly Tromper Fly as asking, what did you do at your dealerships during the recession to move cars? And I'm very interested in this as well, because I know that when my dealership, I'm a small used car dealership, so I'm gonna operate completely different than how a big franchise manager or a franchise dealership works. But I know the tactics that we go through whenever we have cars sitting around. But I want to hear what a big store does, and then I'll tell you what we do whenever we get stressed out about not moving as many cars as we need to.
Well, I will say this. I worked for the Penske organization at that time, and I was part of the what's known as the Scottsdale 101 Auto Collection, which was a big facility, a large auto mall. And we had Porsche, BMW, Jaguar, Land Rover, Audi, Jaguar. I said, VW, Acura, Mini. We just a poop ton of brands. I don't know what every other store did. I know what I did at the store I was at, because I was the new car manager. And as I watched the new car inventory build up, I thought during the height of the recession that we have to give people crazy enough reasons to buy the car. It has to be such a compelling deal that it's hard for a consumer to say no. And I thought, in order to help facilitate that, we should make the pricing of the vehicles um, as easy as possible. So, when you walked into the Acura showroom, by the receptionist desk, there was a whiteboard. And on that whiteboard, it listed every model of vehicle. TL. And it would say TL pricing, invoice, less $500, less any customer incentives. Pick the car, we'll grab the invoice, we'll take $500 off of the invoice price, plus whatever incentives you qualify for. You pay tax, tags, and doc fee above and beyond that. That's what I did on every model. MDX, RDX, TL, RL, whatever it was on the whiteboard. It was in black and white for everybody to see, how much we were going to charge. And some of my salespeople absolutely hated that, because, well, Ray, you're taking away our ability to make money. Well, if you don't sell the car, you're not making any money. And so I didn't have very many salespeople that really had the skill set during a major recession to figure out how to sell a car and make money. So I just thought, let's make it as easy as possible for the customers so that we could try and maintain some semblance of sales because we went from averaging 104 new cars a month to 50. And then ultimately, when I was gone, to 18. And you just had to make, in my opinion, rightly or wrongly, I just thought, make it as easy as possible and make the deals as compelling as possible. There ain't anything to really negotiate. Well, I like stock number X. Okay. The salespeople, I mean, we just had the invoice book right there. They could walk into the office, they could go to that stock number, they could pull out the invoice, and they could take it, walk it over, and show it to the customer. It was that simple. That's what I did.
So you talked about how your salespeople didn't like this approach because it cut into the money they were making. So did they make a percentage off of the profit of, or how did their pay scheme? I've never dealt with. I mean, been a new car salesman or even really talked to someone that was on commission in that capacity. How are they paid?
Typically, it was a percentage of gross profit. So
Okay.
if and at that time, I think it was 20% at the Acura store. So it was gross profit. So if there was a $2,000 gross profit, and they would get 20% of that, so that'd be $400. Okay, we had a minimum commission, even when we took a deal that was invoice less $500.
Yeah, I was about to say they had to pay 20% of that $500 whenever they sold.
I still paid them. I still paid them $150 minimum commission.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the minimum they were going to make. So that's typically how it works. Most stores have what they call PAC, which is a made up number from the dealer to say, well, there's certain expenses, and the salespeople are going to help me cover those expenses. And so on new cars, the pack might be $250 or $500. So the first $500 is not commissionable. Okay, but anything after that would be commissionable. And so, if a salesperson held a $5,000 front end gross profit deal, well, that was $1,000 commission. Well, that's a big difference when from Jump Street it's going to be $1.50. They weren't happy with that, but
right.
We still had volume bonuses. You could still make money, and the way they could make money is most people have a trade in, and we've had this conversation. You have the sales the used car manager appraise a car, put a number on the car. Let's say the trade's worth $10,000, and the salesperson goes out and tells the customer it's worth $8,000. Well, that $2,000 that he didn't give him goes to profit. So you can still make money. But yeah, it's when gross profits are big and you're getting 18 to 20%, it's one thing. When gross profit is a negative number and you're making $150 minimum, it's kind of sort of takes the joy out of selling cars.
I would assume in the last 3 years with dealer markups and things like that, they probably a lot of dealerships haven't used that model where they're paying them 20% when some of these dealerships were making $20,000-$30,000 on a vehicle.
I will tell you that there's a lot of dealer principals out there that said, I'm paying you nothing on the adjusted market adjustments, on the additional dealer profit. We're going to charge $10,000, you get nothing. That just goes to the dealership. You'll get the front end commission that you would get, but you get nothing off of that extra $5,000 or $10,000.
So they screw the customer and the salespeople
every chance they get.
Every chance they get.
Yes,
that's fantastic.
Yes.
I'll see here. Going back to the dealership. So you're talking about how ways of making money in a dealership outside of selling cars, and I'll tell you what we do when times get slower. I remember I was going to go back to that, but we'll answer this question first. We've had this question before. How can dealers make money besides selling cars? Well, that's easy. That's service. That's stock fees. That's added markups. That's nitrogen. That's F&I products. What am I missing, Ray? Service. Did I say service?
Service, detailing. People keep their cars, bring it in. We'll get it detailed for you. Charge you $180 to detail. It costs the dealership $50, whatever it is. But the big way they make money besides selling cars is parts and service. That's huge. Most dealerships, you've heard me talk about service absorption, which is a metric for dealerships, the minimum you want to be. And what service absorption is that the amount of profit generated from the service department should cover, at minimum, 70% of the store's entire expenses. So that only leaves 30% of the expenses to be covered by new cars, used cars, F&I. There are stores whose service absorption is in excess of 100%, that the service department generates such large profits that it covers all of the dealership's expenses. So whatever sales produces is just extra money. And then the other way dealerships make money, I mean, two of my favorite ways that dealerships make money, um, dock fees, aka yacht fees for the dealer principal,
Yeah.
uh, and uh, and what is it they use in the service department? Supplies, grease and supplies, something like that, where they add a percentage to any RO for grease and supplies. Sometimes it's $10, $20, 100 for what? It's nothing. For the rags, for the washers, what. So yeah, that those are two areas where dealerships make a ton of money: shop supplies and dock fees.
Well, okay, let's go to used cars now. So my little used car lot, where we only
Yes.
have like around 100 cars right now, but typically we'll have anywhere from 65 to 85, probably average like 75 cars throughout the year when we're not trying to load up. If we go through a slow time, you know what we do, Ray? We lower our freaking prices.
Stop it.
No. Yeah, so we have a system where, okay, if we have a car that's sitting on our lot, has no attention, we have no leads, that hasn't sold for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
then my sales manager, he's lowering that by $500. And if we go through another 2 weeks and the market tells us, "Hey, this car's still too expensive because we're not even calling you on it," well, we lower it again by another $500. And at that point, we're usually just about breaking even on that car. And the market is telling us, okay, you bought this car wrong. So I'm okay for the market to tell me that, and that's saying, okay, well, let's get this car off the lot and let's get a car on the lot that somebody actually wants to buy. So that's what we do, and we like to we don't I don't like to keep a car longer than about 30 days on my lot.
Well, bless your heart. I wish there were other dealers that understood that. I do have a question for you, however.
Yeah.
How do you pay your salespeople? Um,
My salespeople do not work on commission because I don't want any kind of predatory anything, or I don't want a sell to of one car to mean anything more to another person that's helping a customer out than another person. My mechanic will answer questions about a car. He'll even come up and do a test drive if we're really busy.
yeah.
But my team gets paid. They do have some upside. So if we sell every time we sell 100 cars, they all get a bonus.
Oh,
And it's not just the sales staff. It's
everybody.
title clerk, it's sales manager, it's my mechanic, it's the guy who just runs cars for us. I mean, everybody gets a bonus. So if there's any way that they get upside, it's that. But one car sale is not going to make or break this bonus that they're getting. So there's never a time that I want my customers to feel like they're being pushed into a vehicle, and my sales staff will absolutely not do that because they're paid, and they're paid well. And if they sell that car or not, they're still getting the same paycheck.
So they get a salary?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Because that way there's no pressure. You're not pressuring somebody to buy something that might not be ready to buy it. The salesperson isn't pressuring somebody to buy something because if somebody were to buy it, it would get them to a bonus level. So, yeah, the fact that it's just a salary plus store-wide bonuses, that I would think keeps everybody interested in the total good of the store. I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
And I don't know. There's a chance we could sell more cars if I had salespeople that were getting commission and they were pushing a little bit harder. But I don't want that environment. That's not what I'm trying to build.
Well, good for you. There's more dealers. I wish there were more dealers who thought of it like you think of it, than those who think of it in predatory terms. Because in most cases, it's set up in a predatory manner, um, where the salesperson is encouraged to extract every last penny out of a customer that they can. The bigger the profit, the bigger the commission. Um, So when pay plans are set up that way, it's certainly not set up to encourage building a friendship with your customer.
Well, one thing too, like we don't have a doc fee. We have all we're selling is cars. Like we don't finance our car. Like you can't get financing through us. If a customer needs financing, they go get it themselves and bring it to us. We don't sell any kind of insurance, any warranty, like zero. Like my title clerk is she does sales for me. She's also my stepsister, but she sells like little bracelets she makes. That's the only auxiliary. No, they're not bracelets. They're like keychains that you can wear as a bracelet. That's the only add-on product that we offer at our dealership, and I think they're $2. So
okay.
There you
go. So your title clerk's not getting rich selling those.
Oh no, absolutely not. She just I'm guessing she does. I don't know. I hope she's not thinking that she's going to get rich doing it.
Well, if she could make $5 a keychain and you're selling 10,000 cars, maybe that's a nice side hustle. But I don't think.
Yeah, that would be a nice side hustle. And if I was selling 10,000 cars, I would probably not be on YouTube. So there you go.
Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Tell every living person you know that they need to subscribe to Car Sense with Brandon and Ray.